Copyright University of Auckland, all rights reserved. The content and delivery of lectures in this course are protected by copyright. Material belonging to others may have been used in these lectures and copied by and solely for the educational purposes of the university under license. You may record the lectures for the purposes of private study or research, but you may not sell, alter, or further reproduce or distribute any part of these lectures to any other person. Failure to comply with the terms of this warning may expose you to legal action for copyright infringement by the copyright owner and/or disciplinary action by the university.
Good morning, class. It's 9:05, so it's time to start. Thank you all for being here on time. I really appreciate it because we are the first time in this room, and I know sometimes it's not very easy to find. But today we are very lucky to be here. It's one of the most beautiful rooms where I teach. I don't even know what this piece of furniture in the end of the room means. Probably I should lecture from there. But okay.
I think it was a mood from before. That's why it's left over there.
Oh, could be. Okay. So let us start anyways. So before we proceed to the main topic of today's lecture, I want to remind you some administrative things related to the course organization. So if you remember, in the previous lecture I introduced you to Canvas, but I hope you anyway know what it is. And if you have any questions or concerns, you can ask them here at Piazza. So far, I guess only a bit more than 1/3 of us registered there, but you can see we had already quite a lot of discussions there. By the way, one of them is not addressed yet. Weekly textbook readings. Yes, each week I recommend some readings for you. So it's recommended, it's not mandatory, so I will not ask you if you read it or not. But then if you read it, well, you will have much less troubles for your assignments, midterm tests, and so on. So as for readings, where can you find them? So if you bought a course book, you can find them just on page 7 in the beginning of the course book. All the readings are there. On top of that, I think I will upload on Canvas the same list, and I will give you the link there. So probably it will be the easiest way. Most of the readings are from the textbook that I recommended. It's the local textbook by Gardner. Some readings are from some other books or just research articles published somewhere else. And you can have the links to them on Canvas. You can just go to the reading list here, and you will basically get all the information you need. So another piece of news is that the first lecture recording is already uploaded, so you can have access to that. And generally, I try to upload lecture recordings as soon as they become available to me. So it means like 24, sometimes 48 hours, depending on our IT system. So to get access to lecture recordings, you can just go to modules. And here you will get this lecture recordings link, where you can see all the lecture recordings we have. So far, of course, we have only the first one for week 1. I upload lecture recordings to a separate website. It's not exactly on Canvas. It's called aucklandinsights.com. It redirects you there automatically. So this website was developed by our PhD student, specifically for purposes of uploading videos and other materials. So to support his research, I decided to use his website. So you can log in here after creating an account. By now, all of you should have received an invitation email to this website from Andy, the PhD student of our department. So just follow the link and then register there. Well, you can pretty much choose any username, password you wish. Probably it's easier if you use just your UPI as the username, then you will not forget it. Because already we had some troubles that some people registered and then could not recall their username. And after that, you can basically access the video recordings. of our lectures. So they will be all here. Well, as before, if you get any questions during the lecture time, feel free to ask them either by raising your hand or just by going online. Slide 025. So if I don't have time to answer your queries during the lecture, I answer them later on Piazza. So you can see some of the answers already posted there. Okay, so probably that's it. Well, another piece of information I forgot about is that we still need 2 class representatives from this class. So after the lecture, I will ask those of you who are interested just to come here and to sign up to be a class rep. It means that, well, you can defend the interests of your class, talk to the administration, make complaints and so on. And generally, it's quite an important role, and we encourage students to participate in it. So that's probably all. So let's start with the main content. So if you remember, last week I stopped exactly here. So these are the 9 topics that we are going to cover during this course. Why exactly 9 topics? Well, of course, this is a bit subjective. So I could have chosen more, I could have chosen less. In my view, and in view of a lot of other researchers at this university, at some other places, these are the most important topics of operations management. Of course, we keep changing them from time to time, depending on the recent trends in the industry, in the research, and so on. But for this year, so this is our selection. So we will go through all these topics one by one. Today we'll start with strategy, then we will move to forecasting, capacity management, process design, lean thinking, balanced results and performance measurement, product design, inventory management, and collaborative supply chain. So now I will briefly go through all 9 of them because it will be important for your assignment number 1. In this assignment, I will ask you to link these topics together based on a particular example. So of course, at this stage, you are not expected to have a deep understanding of any of these topics. So what I just want you to know is just to have an idea about what it is. So to have an idea about what lean thinking means. So that's why I will briefly go through this now. And then if you need further information for your assignment, feel free to read the textbook, the course book, or some preliminary information about the topic. Or just ask me. I will be happy to answer. So 9 topics. The first topic is strategy. Well, strategy, the name is quite intuitive, right? So most of us understand that there should be some strategy, there should be some tactics, and they're kind of 2 instruments of managing any company, any enterprise, and not necessarily, I mean, in business world, but anywhere else. So strategy is the long-term direction. It's something that is the manifestation of what you want to achieve in the long term. So pretty much any company has a strategy. So it's hard to think about a company without a strategy. Probably some companies operate like that, just on daily business, depending on like what they feel. They make some decisions, but generally, most companies know what they're going to do in a year, in a 2. Some companies in some countries have long-term plans, like the plan for 100 years from now. Of course, it's very imprecise, but still they try to figure out the general direction of where to go. So the key idea, how it can be applied to operations. In operations management, we are talking about resources. Resources that the company has, like human resources, access to some rare resources like possibly location or something else. And the company will need to understand how to better use them. So what products, what mix of products and services to offer to the customers, at which price, which quality, and so on. So today we'll be talking about strategy, so we'll go into more details. So even University of Auckland has a strategic plan. You can actually go online and to check how this plan looks like. So if you have fast internet connection, it will open now. If not, you will be able to get access to that offline. So you see the University of Auckland strategic plan, and there you can see everything that University of Auckland plans to do which concerns you as the students here. The connection is not that good probably, but still, so you see it contains some missions, values, introduction, and then some exact objectives of what to achieve. So how many students the University of Auckland should get, say, in a year from now, in 2 years from now. Let me just scroll down to that. So for example, in this table, you can see the master's program in 2011 and then the plan for 2020. So how many more taught masters the university plans to attract, research masters, and so on. So the same plan you can get for undergraduate program, for the combination, for the portfolio of the university. So here on this slide you can see that undergraduate program in, like 4 years ago, 6 years ago actually, 5 years ago, yeah, was 71% of all programs in terms of student numbers, domestic student numbers, and they project that this figure will go down to 65, so there will be more international students coming and more students who want to do their master's degree, because nowadays more and more people they tend to get higher degrees, and so the competition gets higher and more people decide to continue to their master's degree after getting the bachelor. So that's some very general high-level plan, but based on that, the university can derive its strategy.
It seems like they're focusing more on the postgrad side.
They focusing more on the postgrad side. So basically, they focus that you, after finishing your studies here, will decide to join some postgraduate programs, and you will be more likely to decide to do that than the students who were here, say, 10 years ago. So that's why there will be a bit more students at the postgraduate level, including PhD level, by the way. So they had some forecast, and then there is a lot of strategy. So I don't go into details, you can read all it on your own, but based on this forecast, some strategy is devised about how to change the programs. So for example, now the university plans to offer a 1-year master's program, because we expect more students to come, and we know that some students cannot study for 2 years in a row, so like due to some circumstances or their willingness to work instead of studying. That's why there are more programs to be offered. So that's how strategy can influence a decision on offering new products or services. Okay, so the second topic that we are going to cover is actually demand management and forecasting. So you see, it's very linked to strategy. Actually, to build your strategy, you need to have some understanding of what's going on in the future. So you need to have an idea if there will be more students or less students, on the example of the university. If you have more customers or less customers, if you're running some business, what will be the recent trends, like the new trends in the raw materials that you procure? So are they going to increase in price or become cheaper? So all of this must be considered to actually devise a strategy. And then there is another direction. So the strategy may have an effect on the demand management and forecasting that you make. So forecasting is basically trying to predict how your demand or some other indicator will look like in the future, say tomorrow, next month, or in a year from now. So of course, so it depends on what strategy you choose. So if you choose to launch a new product, so you need to make a forecast for the demand on that new product. All right. So this will be the second topic, and we will start it probably next week. Yeah, I'm almost sure that we will start it next week. And then the third topic will be capacity management. Capacity management is about how much capacity to create. So there are a lot of decisions, long-term decisions for a company, like to build a new factory or not. For university, it will be to build a new educational facilities or not. You know that university is now investing a lot in its campus. It's building, almost completed a new tower there on the Simon Street. Basically, because they had some strategic plan, then they made some forecast of how many more students are going to be enrolled, and they figured out that we don't have enough rooms. Actually, almost all the rooms in the university are used now, so it's very hard to find a spare room. Just 2 days ago, I was looking for a different room for us in week 7 because we need a bigger room for a particular exercise that we are going to hold there. And actually, I had only 2 available rooms in the entire university for that time. So it means that all other rooms are taken, that the utilization of the university facilities is really high, and the university is desperately needing new capacity. And to correctly make a decision on new capacity, on how much more capacity to build, or in some other circumstances, to actually get rid of some capacity, to sell extra buildings, extra equipment, capacity management is needed. So here we will learn some basic principles on how to manage the capacity. So what approaches exist out there? So either to maintain capacity at a stable level or to change it constantly depending on how your demand is evolving. So we will look at those topics. But what you need to do now is basically capacity management is about how much capacity to build or how much capacity to sell. So capacity determines your production capability. So it determines how many students you can educate or how many products you can produce or how much services you can deliver at some point of time. The next topic will be process design. So after you decided on strategy, forecasting, how much capacity to build, you need to understand how to design your process. Should it be a mass production? So should you install some conveyor belts and manufacture thousands of units of standardized products? Or maybe sometimes you need to focus on higher level of customization. So if you want more customization, then assembly line, continuous flow will not be the best process choice. So depending on the volume you want to produce, you may choose something different, like batch production process or job shop layout of your facilities. So we'll be talking about how to choose the correct process type depending on the product that your company is manufacturing or depending on the service that your company is delivering. So this is topic number 5, right? Process design. Well, after that topic we'll probably have a midterm test. So we will also have a look at customization level. And the next topic will be lean thinking. So here the name is not that intuitive. So some of you may have heard about, say, Toyota production system or lean manufacturing. Some of you may have not heard about it. I totally understand that. So this is the approach to mostly to manufacturing. It's very rarely applied to services, but it's also possible to do so. The key idea here will be the reduction of items or activities that do not add value to your final customer. So if you are talking about a manufacturing facility, mostly it will be a reduction of your inventory level because keeping inventory is costly. You need warehouse, you need insurance, you need to pay some interest to the bank because you need to borrow money to buy inventory. But your customer doesn't really care how much inventory you have. You can have as little inventory as 0 in your pipeline and then have something on the shelf. The value for the customer will be still the same. The customer can come and buy your product. So reducing inventory will be the key idea here. So the idea is to make the manufacturing process as lean as possible. So to have as less wastes, as they call in this topic, wastes as possible. So wastes can be extra inventory, overproduction, some unnecessary operations like motion, transportation of the product where it's not necessary to do so. And a lot of companies now are trying to make their processes leaner because it's very easy to get huge savings by redesigning their processes. If you're taking the course Operations Management 258, there you will be talking more about business process reengineering, redesign, and also about lean thinking. Here it's just one topic in this course. But it should be quite interesting. We are going to play some simulations during this topic, so you will learn how to set up your facilities so that the manufacturing process is lean. The next topic will be how to measure the results of all your decisions. So you have made forecast, chosen your capacity level, then redesigned the process to make it leaner, probably applied some other strategic decision for your company, but then how do you measure the success? So is it only about profit, or is there something else? Because there are a lot of companies that are purely loss generating, especially in the first years of their operations. Take Uber, for example. Take any other startup. For the first 2-3 years, they generate huge losses, and yet their value is billions of dollars. So clearly, profit is not the only indicator of how to measure the success of a company. And here we are going to look at which operations parameters are incorporated in the measurement of the company's success. So we will learn such methodologies as balanced scorecard, as the radar graph, which is quite intuitive. Balanced scorecard is less so, but it's important to know that to be able to evaluate how successful your policies are. So the next topic will be quality, product design, and in particular we will focus here on the statistical quality control, on such methodologies as total quality management and Six Sigma approach. So that's basically how to ensure that your the failure rate at your manufacturing facility is sufficiently low. If we're talking about services, we can also come up with a failure rate. Well, basically, at the university example, it's the failure rate of students, so the number of students that we are not able to educate to sufficiently high level. And in this topic, we are going to talk about how to measure all these indicators, which actions we need to take to improve the quality. Well, and we'll talk about a lot of related stuff. And of course, it will affect a lot of our other decisions, like process designs, for example. So if you want higher quality, probably we'll need to rearrange process design and to move from the assembly line to batch production, or vice versa, depending on the situation. Change our inventory management policy, supply chain policy, and so on. So all the topics are really interrelated here. So when talking, say, about quality, of course, we'll be talking at the same time a lot about the other topics. So after deciding how to manage the quality, what quality level we want to achieve, because we cannot achieve 100% quality at a reasonable cost. Actually, it's never possible to achieve the 100% quality, zero failure rate, due to variability inherent for most of the processes. So after determining the quality policy, we will look at the inventory management. Inventory management is essentially one of the most important topics. At the same time, it's quite difficult. That's why I wanted to delay it. So we will look at it only in the end of our class, in the second half of the class, when you have sufficiently high understanding of operations management. So inventory management and resource planning is all about how to manage your inventory. So when to order more inventory. What should be the optimal level of your inventory? So should you maintain it as low as possible, as lean thinking recommends, but there are some risks. What if your demand is unpredictable and it can go higher very quickly, and then you will not have enough products to sell to your customers? With services, the same thing. So if you don't have enough facilities and all of a sudden more customers are arriving wanting to get your service, you cannot actually do anything. You just have to say that, sorry, we cannot serve you. With the university, it's happening now. For some of the programs, we need to set a certain cap so that we don't enroll more than this number of students, because we just don't have enough facility to teach. And it takes quite a long time to expand the capacity. It was a very useful topic for me, actually, after I took the pretty much similar classes I'm teaching now. Well, a bit outdated, of course, because it was a long time ago. then, pretty much next year after doing that, I joined Procter & Gamble, and the first project was about inventory management. They just asked me to find the optimal inventory policy for their manufacturing facilities, and that's exactly what I learned in this class, and I could do it quite easily, and actually the savings were quite huge. Well, we'll be talking about it later on when we get to this topic. But it's really useful, so I would recommend you to really focus on that one. And finally, so this is the last topic, collaborative supply chains, but indeed we will spend more than 1 week on that, because supply chain management is an important part of this course. So in this topic, I will try to extrapolate all the ideas that we discussed about operations management, and I will extrapolate them to the domain of supply chain management. Because supply chain management is pretty much operations management, but when multiple companies are involved. So all the same concepts will be applied in supply chain management as we had in operations management. But they will be at a bit higher difficulty level, because several companies simultaneously will decide on inventory policy, on what forecasts to make, on how to manage demand, on how to manage their capacity. And the result will depend on their common decision on their individual decision about all these factors. So we will have a look how it affects the performance of the entire supply chain. To do that, we will actually simulate a supply chain. So all of you will be making decisions for a particular company in simulated supply chains, and we will see all the problems that arise during this exercise. Well, and then we will learn some nice ways how to coordinate the supply chain. So this is topic number 9. So now you know what we are going to learn, and basically this should be enough for you to start doing your assignment 1, especially parts A and B, because they're quite general. There I will be just asking you about doing some research online and then answering some questions. So it shouldn't be that difficult. And now you know this information about which topics we are going to talk about, so you will need to try to link a particular question to a particular topic. Part C of assignment 1 is based on forecasting, so don't start doing it now, you can do it next week. Okay, so at this moment I will start talking about strategy. So, security alert. Yes. So I will start with strategy. So this is the first topic of our course. So briefly I mentioned that strategy is the long-term plan of the company, and that's why this is the first topic. So before we do anything else, we need to have some vision. We can adjust it later on. So for example, our vision is to build the largest car manufacturing company in New Zealand. Then what we need to do next is to forecast the demand for new cars which we are going to produce in New Zealand. And by the way, if there are no other companies, car manufacturing companies in New Zealand, then pretty much any company will be the largest. But after making the forecast, then probably we will change our strategy to something else. So probably not just manufacture cars, but to manufacture, say, electric cars or carbon neutral cars or something like that. So of course strategy can be adjusted afterwards. But anyway, we start with strategy and then the iterations begin. So given a strategy, what will be our decisions across all these topics and what will be the results of our decisions. So how do we measure the success of our decisions? It will be calculated there. And then if we don't like it, we can readjust our strategy. So as easy as that. So let's start talking about the strategy. So the main idea of what we are going to do today is the following. By the end of the lecture, we will end this lecture not today but next week, but by the end of this lecture next week, you will learn the following. So you will learn why operations management is important. You should be able to distinguish between internal customers and external customers. That's quite intuitive, but we will talk about it to make sure that we know that there are some internal customers. Because a lot of managers with whom I talk, they just don't realize that a customer is not necessarily an external person who comes and buys something. So it can be an internal department of your company. So if you are, say, in accounting department of the company, then your customers will be actually the operations department of the company, the CEO of the company, who are actually working in the same company, and it's important to realize that they are the customers. Then we will talk about some strategic terms, core competence and competitive advantage. So, and we will try to apply it to operations management. Competitive capabilities or priorities, these are the terms which are related mostly to operations management strategy. So we will talk about which competitive capabilities we can develop and how to choose which ones to develop. Well, we will talk about it in a lot of details, like we will define some such capabilities as quality, flexibility, and so on. So we will learn different capabilities. And the important concept of operations management is the difference between order qualifiers and order winners. About the capabilities that are order qualifiers and order winners. So most likely we will do it next week. And then in the end we'll be talking about trade-offs. So it's impossible to develop all competitive capabilities at the same time. So you will see why it is the case, but well, pretty much you should understand that you cannot get cheap product with extremely high quality, because if you invest a lot in quality, probably you need to increase the price to get a payoff on your investments. Well, and finally, yes, the definition of operation strategy, that's quite clear. So the strategy in a company exists at 3 different levels. So I briefly mentioned only the operations management strategy, but indeed the strategy is much more than just operations management strategy. So we start with the very high level now. So there is some corporate strategy in a company, in any company. So that's a very general thing. So the company needs to answer what they are doing. So are they teaching students? Are they manufacturing cars? Are they helping other companies, consulting them on making audit? So what exactly are they doing? A lot of companies have, at the same time, different businesses, right? And the company needs to decide in which businesses they are the most competitive, so which businesses they want to develop, and which businesses maybe they need to abandon. Because say in your assignment you have the Mars Incorporated, this famous chocolate manufacturer, but indeed if you check what Mars is doing, you will find that they're not manufacturing only Mars Snickers and other chocolate bars. They're manufacturing lots of other stuff like pet food, like devices to check in, to count in money. So they're manufacturing lots of different stuff, even though the brand is mostly well known for one particular business. So corporate strategy is about that. Which businesses to develop, where to invest, where to divest, either to launch new products or not, either to merge with some other companies or not to merge, and so on. This is corporate strategy. So very general level of strategy, just defining what exactly we are doing. The next level of strategy will be business strategy. So in a particular business, so in business of teaching students, in business of manufacturing furniture, or manufacturing chocolate bars, anything. So in this business, what is the company going to do? What should be its competitive priorities or capabilities? So we will talk about the possible choices for competitive capabilities and priorities in a moment. But this level of decision is typically at the business strategy level, so the second level of strategy. Order qualifiers, order winners. So at this moment you don't know what it is actually. So we'll talk about it, but that's the business strategy. And finally, the operation strategy is the third level of strategy. So after the decision is made about our competitive capabilities, so we need to understand. We need to answer lots of other questions, like how to organize the supply of resources to manufacture the products that we decided to manufacture. That's supply chain management, and that's an operation strategy. Then how to configure the company's infrastructure, meaning that what should be the capacity level, what should be the inventory policy of the company, what should be the process layout. This is all the questions that we need to answer in operation strategy. And to do that, we will learn lots of concepts during this course. So 3 levels of strategy, starting from corporate, choosing the business, then after the business is chosen, choosing the competitive capabilities, and after they're chosen, we are choosing how to achieve those competitive capabilities. So basically, these are the 3 levels, the 3 steps of doing operations management. So let's have a look at this diagram. So here we have 4 different categories. We start from here. So any company will start from defining their core competence. So if you are from marketing major, or you took some marketing classes, or some strategic management classes maybe, so you should have probably looked at this diagram already. So we start always from core competences. So any company, actually any person, any enterprise can start defining their strategy in this manner. So let's start with core competence. What is core competence? Core competence is what we are good at. So initially there is some company, assume already existent, and they should have some core competences due to their history, due to their location. So for example, Mars chocolate company, they're good at manufacturing chocolate bars because they have a lot of experience in doing that. After we understand what a company is good at, the next stage is to understand the competitive advantage. Competitive advantage is something that will give you a competitive edge, basically. So it's something that makes you better than anyone else. So for companies, mostly it will be resources. Say for Mars company, the competitive advantage will be the connections to the suppliers of cocoa beans for their chocolates, the technology that they own, patents, and so on. So this will be the competitive advantage, which allows the company to be better than competitors. So that's the idea of competitive advantage. What exactly gives you that? But why we are talking about that? We are talking about that only to know the prerequisites to defining the competitive capabilities of the company. This is the 3rd stage. So there is something original at which we are, original topics at which we are good. We normally have some competitive advantage, and in the next stage we choose the competitive capabilities. Overall, in operations management, managers and researchers define 5 different competitive capabilities, 5 large categories of competitive capabilities. Well, let's look at all of them. The first one will be the low cost or low price. So of course it depends on what the initial cost of the product is, of what at which life cycle stage of the product life cycle we are at now. But most importantly is that this is one of competitive capabilities, and the company may focus on delivering a product at low cost or, well, in the end at low price for the customer, be it external or internal. The other competitive capabilities can include quality. So I start with the most intuitive ones, right? So cost and quality, we all understand that some products can be of low cost, some products can be of low quality, and vice versa. High cost, high quality, and so on. So quality is typically about performance of a particular product or service, and its features that it has, reliability. And well, you can come up with some other explanations for the quality. The 3rd one will be delivery. So how fast you can deliver a service or deliver a product to a customer once the customer needs it. So very often as final consumers, we actually can face that. So if we say order something online, we experience delivery at the first, like directly. Sometimes it's indirectly that the delivery is the main issue for, say, retailers who buy products from the suppliers, sometimes overseas, and the delivery time is really important to making a decision. So the fourth competitive capability, possible competitive capability that the company may need to develop is called flexibility. So flexibility is how much the product is customized. So basically, does it satisfy a particular need of a customer, or it's a very generic product that different customers can buy, and for some it will have probably larger value, inherent value, for others it will have a lower inherent value, and so on. So of course, the more customized the product, the better, because if you customize the product for every customer, then every customer will get a higher value from that product. Unfortunately, it's kind of expensive. That's why it's impossible to get as high a level of flexibility as possible. Another dimension of flexibility is the possibility for the customer to upgrade the product, to configure the product according to the customer's needs, and so on. So quite naturally, some products are more flexible, others are less flexible. So if we're talking about laptops, for some of them it's quite easy to find a spare part if something needs to be fixed. For others it's more difficult. For some laptops it's easier to upgrade them. For others it's almost impossible to actually change anything. So that's the flexibility dimension. And finally, I forgot to talk about the volume changes. So it's how easy to buy different volume of a product. Of course, it doesn't apply to all the products, but some of them it can be important, especially for B2B customers, which are really concerned about buying different quantity of the product and possibly getting some quantity discounts as well. So, and the fifth dimension is the service. So service, competitive capability of service includes, of course, the buying experience, and even more importantly, the post-sales service, so the warranty, the possibility to exchange the product if something goes wrong, the duration of this warranty period, well, and so on. So these are the 5 categories, very broad categories. And typically, when a company decides about the strategy, they need to decide about these 5 categories for all their products. So they need to decide about the price level, the quality level, the delivery speed, the flexibility of a product, and the service quality information.
Just to pose a question. With regards to this chart that we have, it seems more applicable to the manufacturing sector.
Well, yeah, it's easier to apply to the manufacturing sector, but it's also possible to do it to service sector. Say, take hospital, for example. So you know that at different hospitals, the prices can be different. Well, it depends on the country. Sometimes it's regulated, but generally speaking, some hospitals can be more expensive, others less expensive. Right? And why does it happen? Because they choose the competitive capability, either low cost or they don't choose low cost as a competitive capability. But then more expensive hospitals probably chose something else as their competitive capability. For example, it could be a wider range of services that they deliver. It will be flexibility. So they can treat you from multiple diseases or
What about
do
service
more.
of the service industry?
Service us, just directly service of the service industry. Okay, so here it will be mostly about buying experience. So, you know, in a hospital it can be either a large room with TV, with king-size bed and so on, or it can be a small room which you share with several other patients. So this will be more a buying experience for service industry. So in case of university, in some universities you can be located in this kind of old, very nice rooms, and other universities probably it will be a bit different experience of education. So I would say that pretty much for any industry you can find some buying experience. After sales service, yes, it's mostly about manufacturing because, well, actually for services you can also talk about that. So after, say, you visit your GP, a GP can either forget about you or they can call you asking about, so did the medication actually help or not, and so on. So that's after sales service. In the university, the same thing. So the university can either forget about you after you graduate or keep asking you about, did you find a job, how do you like the job, do you need help for our career services, and so on. But this only happens if a company chooses service as their competitive capability. So as you will see later on, it's impossible to choose all of them at once as the competitive capabilities because quite naturally, all of them require certain investments. And it's impossible, well, it's technically possible to invest in all of them, but then it will mean basically that you didn't choose any as your competitive capability and you have a product of say medium cost, medium quality, medium delivery speed, and so on. So everything will be somehow in the middle, and well, it just depends on the market. Sometimes these products are successful, sometimes are less so, but as the research and just observations of the companies show, typically more successful companies are those that choose at least some of these 5 categories as their competitive capabilities and invest more in them. It's just more efficient. Because different products can be at different stage of their life cycle. Some products can be quite new. For example, what do we have new now? Like several years ago, like say electronic readers, e-books were quite new, and the companies needed to invest in some of these categories and not in the others. For example, when a new product appears on the market, the cost and price is not that important for the customers because they just want to experience something new. And that's why it's important that you deliver a product with potentially some flexibility as something new that to what the customers typically have. Probably you need to invest a lot in delivery speed because the customers want to get it as fast as possible. But then later on in the product life cycle, so when the type of product is not that new anymore, then the customers become more and more conscious about low cost and prices. And new products will probably, new companies should choose probably this as their competitive capability. I think yesterday or 2 days ago there was this short piece of news, probably on TV3 or somewhere else, that some local New Zealand company developed a 3D glasses made from just carton box, because this way they cost only $25 instead of regular price of say $150. It's just this device for
Virtual reality?
For virtual reality, just 3D reality, where you put your smartphone in the end of this box and then you can just rotate your head and you see that everything is changing in front of you. So that's what they did. So originally, when virtual reality devices only appeared on the market, customers didn't care about the cost. They were ready to pay $150 or more just to try that. But now, when it's not that new companies appear and they choose low cost as their competitive capability because just they know that customers now don't really want to buy it as fast as possible, that the product is not as exciting anymore, and probably focusing on low cost and price will attract more customers nowadays. So what's important is that there are these 5 categories. The companies will focus on some of them, and how to focus, well, we'll talk about it later, but basically the company needs to decide which of these competitive capabilities can be order winners and which one of them will be only merely order qualifiers. Well, I think we don't have that much time now, so I think I will stop the lecture at this time. At this moment. Now you will have your labs. It will be introduction to Excel, so please attend the lab, don't miss it, it's quite important.